All right, boys, who did their...
Yes, I found a pen.
Who did their meditations?
Never mind, I don't need one. I found a pen. Me.
Everyone did them?
Yes.
Okay. What are we seeing? What changes are we seeing? You boys are doing it for a long period of time at this point.
So you know how we did a new one?
Mm-hmm.
So we have been doing it, but I was getting lost a lot, but now I'm starting to not get lost as much, but I'm still getting lost a lot, kind of.
Do you think so I do it 40 minutes. Today I did it 30 minutes this morning. Do you think I still get lost all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So are you always going to get lost? But it's catching yourself faster. That's the goal. And are you doing that? It's perfect.
I'm more focused these last couple days.
Focus. Do you have any like real life examples? Is anybody seeing changes in like daily life or when they're in the game or when they're playing?
I
Like,
focus
I'm not being that.
Okay, so let's raise your hand. Sean, you go first.
I focus on the game more.
Okay, so you feel like you're there more, like you're more intentional. That's good.
I focus more on the little things that matter.
Okay, that's really, really good.
I'm starting to see what people do a lot more, and then try to follow up on that. So I'm in the moment, and I can remember stuff quicker.
So more observant. That's cool. What were you gonna say, Coop?
I was gonna say like, it was like, I forgot.
You're good, buddy. So everyone thinks it's working? Everyone feels like it's helpful? Like helpful enough to the point where you do it even if I'm not here to finagle you to do it? Okay, that's good. That's the goal, right? Because am I always going to be here for you guys?
No.
To remind you to do it? No. But eventually, like me, I'm the one that pulled myself to do it every day. It took a while to get there, but that's the point where it's so helpful that you want to do it. Make sense? Okay, so today's class, boys, write down class 9.
I need a paper.
Yep, you need a paper.
I don't need one yet. I can fit room.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I can give you one. If you are out of notebooks, just because those are expensive notebooks, boys, instead of giving you another one, can we keep a separate notebook for us? We'll give you another one, like if you do fall camp and stuff, we'll give you another one, but we only bought a certain amount for the summer.
Yeah. What is it?
How big do you write?
Oh, very big.
Oh, kind of big.
There's one right here.
Oh, I didn't know we fill out those. I only fill out.
The learning ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, if there's extra space, you can use it,
Oh,
right?
I filled out none of those. Wait, did you fill those out? Yeah.
You got to be writing so big if you're out.
Well, I just write down a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
You're good. That's totally fine.
I write down tips that can help me.
I mean, I
along
don't
with the
write-
stuff that we're also supposed to.
I don't write that big.
All right, do we got class 9? Okay. Today's class is about emotions and perception. So write down emotions. Emotions and perception.
Emotions and what?
Perception. So first, what's an emotion, boys?
Like,
Happy, sad, angry.
So is it something you feel? Is it a different range of feeling, essentially? Yes? So let's write that down. A range of feeling. Okay. Where's my... What's perception? We've already learned that word, but let's remind ourselves. Yep. How you see something. Let's write that down. Okay. So emotions are a range of feeling, and perception is how you see something. The problem, okay? So there's two problems when it comes to this, boys, when we talk about emotion, perception, the ability to be mindful and see what's going on clearly, okay? The first problem, do people think that there are negative emotions or bad emotions? Yes. If we label something as bad, if we judge it as bad or like or dislike, does that mean we're going to try and avoid that negative emotion? And not only will we try to avoid that negative emotion, will we try and hold on to the positive ones? Yes. Are those both forms of wanting? Yes. And we learned in our previous classes, wanting leads to attach.
Attachment.
Wanting leads to attachment. We remember that? And if we have a bunch of attachment, boys, are we less free? Do we have less power? Do we have less control? Are you going to play at peak performance then? No. Does that make sense? So the first problem is that there are not bad emotions. Do most people think there are? Yeah. And that leads to wanting and attachment. Does that make sense, boys? That's the first problem, is we think there's negative emotions. No. Do emotions point to something? Is it trying to show us a solution? Do they have a purpose? Do all emotions belong? Write that down. All emotions belong, right? They're not a mistake. It's showing you that something needs to change. A simple example could be, let's say you're in a grumpy mood, right? And you start to notice, man, I'm in a grumpy mood on the nights that I wake up early and don't get as much sleep, right? Could it be pointing to a possible solution on that mood or what you need to work on to be better? Yes or no? Yes, right? Is it a bad emotion? No, that's extremely helpful for you, right? To show you what we need to learn and to be better at. Does that make sense, boys? So that's step one. There aren't bad emotions. They point to something. They're trying to show us something. If you have a lot of one emotion, is it bad?
No.
No, it's trying to show you something. And are you finding it if you keep having that emotion? No. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, the second problem. Emotions distort perception. What does it mean to distort something, boys?
Like you take it away or like keep it?
You don't sort it, you keep it in a mess.
So let's say I put on some crazy glasses. Or let's say you know the photo booth book on like the MacBook computers. You know that photo booth thing where it can make your face change in a bunch of different ways? What is it doing to the perception of the person?
Changing.
Is it distorting it? Right? It's not making it look how it normally is. Correct? Okay. Emotions distort perception. It changes the way we see things. And does it make it harder to see clearly? It does. Am I saying to not have emotions? Is that what it's saying?
No.
It's saying that you should know when you're being emotional, because then can you be careful on what you see and how you see it? Yes. Does that make sense, boys? So let's recap. The biggest things to understand about emotions to help us play better and be better people is what? The first thing.
There are no
There's
bad emotions.
there's no bad emotions.
No bad emotions. Does that make sense for Sean? There's no mistake in emotion language, right? It's trying to show you something. It's not bad. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is what?
Usually it's trying to tell you something that you need to change.
Emotions.
That's correct. That was part of number one, but you're correct. They distort perception. So they make it harder to see clearly. Yes? If you can't see it clearly, boys, are you going to be able to stop the problem? Or what's going on? Can you replicate the things that you are looking for and striving for? No. Does that make sense? Cool. So, today's going to be a lot of drawing, boys, okay? And we're going to learn, okay? The first thing to understand is we have to talk about pain and suffering. We've mentioned this one other time in our class. We're going to review it so we can refresh our memory, okay? There's this analogy, boys, when we talk about ancient wisdom, okay? And it's called the two arrows, all right? And let's say this is the arrow that it's hitting, all right? Do we see the two arrows here? Yep. Okay. Two arrows. The first arrow, boys, is pain. Okay? What is pain?
Like you get hurt or like.
Yes, you get hurt. Can you be hurt physically and mentally?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You can do both. A lot of people think of pain as just a physical experience. It can also be a mental experience. Okay? The second arrow, boys, is suffering. Okay? What's the difference?
Suffering is like kind of like you reach the limits, like I can't explain it.
That's okay.
Pain is suffering is more long term than pain is.
Okay? So you're on the right track. Okay?
Suffering's like you meet the end of the, like you meet the end of something.
Okay? You guys are on the right track. Pain is the initial experience, right? So say you break your leg. The initial experience of that is what? Pain. Now, let's say we break our leg and we're out for 6 months of basketball. And we dwell on how we're injured and how we could be playing right now. And all our friends are playing basketball and I'm not playing basketball. And I really wish I didn't break my leg. What is that? Suffering, right? You're ruminating and dwelling on what happened, how it could be different, and how unfair it is.
Suffering is mental and pain's usually physical.
Not necessarily, right? Because can we have a mental pain experience, right? Say you lose something, like you lose a pet, right? Can that be very painful mentally? Very painful, right? But if we ruminate on things we can't control or dwell on it, okay, or overthink it, what happens? Do we suffer? So is suffering in our control? Partially, it is, right? Is the pain in our control? No, that's not in our control whatsoever. But can we learn how to stop inflicting suffering on ourselves? Yes. Okay, so that's a lot of what this speech is going to tie into. Okay, but what's our goal? We're trying to have less suffering. You're always going to have pain in your life, boys. I'm not here to tell you you cannot have pain. That is not how it works. That's not how reality works. But we can lessen suffering by learning how to stop adding a second arrow to our pain, right? Obviously, the first arrow, if it hits us, it's going to hurt. But can you do anything about the first arrow? No. Can you do something about the second arrow?
Yes.
So that's what we're going to learn. Cool? Now, boys, learning how to let things flow, okay? Let's say this represents water, this top bar. Are we on the same page? Let's go back to that graph when we learned about wanting an attachment, okay? So this circle represents what is, okay? What does what is mean? What does that mean, boys? What is? Close. Remember when we talked about judgment and non-judgment? What is judging?
No. So, question.
It's subjective.
Close. Other one. What is objective, right? It is what is happening, right? This is what's happening. It's not what I want it to be, what I wish it was, right, Vishan? Does that make sense? It's objectively what happens. When we airball 3 shots, most of us, do we look at what is?
Yes.
Really?
We don't.
No, you tell yourself, I suck, I'm not a good shooter, I should never shoot again, right? Why isn't any of my hard work paying off? Okay, are any of those what is perceiving or statements? No, what is non-judgment, it's objective, it's happening without us putting our lens on it. Does that make sense? Okay, so what is? A lot of times do we fight what is?
Yeah.
All the time, okay? When we're fighting what is, that means we're wanting it to be different, correct? Is that what that line represents, wanting? What does wanting lead to? Attachments? Attachments, okay? Wanting leads to attachments. Now, when we talk about emotions, boys, we have to learn how to let things flow, okay? So we've learned, boys, is pain optional? Really? Pain's optional? No. Pain isn't optional. Suffering is optional, correct? So when you have emotions, are they ever wrong or mistaken? No, right? Are we the ones that get in the way by saying, no, this isn't right? We get in the way, right? We get in the way of emotions because all of them belong, right? It's trying to show you something. It's not bad. We're the ones that get in the way and said, this is bad. I'm not supposed to feel this. I just want to feel happy all the time. Is that a problem? Yes. Because if you only hold on to positive states, boys, okay, this creates blockages in what is going on. So let's say this top example, boys, this circle represents flowing your emotions, letting your emotions flow through you, letting it run its course, okay? This is what it would represent. Water passing through what's going on smoothly and easy, Okay? You're letting the emotion happen, right? So let's say you're sad about something. Most people, when they're sad, what do? They try and avoid it, escape it at all possible costs? Yes or no? Yes, because they think it's bad. It's not good. Okay? This creates a block. And this block represents resistance, right? We're resisting what is. Does that make sense, boys? So write this down. Suffering is resistance. Suffering is resistance. That doesn't mean there won't be pain, right? Because if we're letting emotions flow through us, could there still be pain? For sure, okay? This blockage represents what? What's happening when we suffer? Because what happens to the water? It gets rejected. It gets blocked. So does it take a lot longer for our emotions to pass through us? Yes or no? Yeah. Okay, so now let's go back here. Let's say this represents the roller coaster of emotions, correct? Yes? Okay. Someone that lets emotions pass through them, that lets them flow, will all of these highs and lows last a long time? If you let it flow through you? No. When do emotions stick around for long periods of time? When you don't let them flow. When you resist it. When you say, this isn't supposed to be here. So in reality, for most of us, we get stuck in the emotions we don't want because inside, if we break it down, you're resisting it, it's not flowing through it. Does that make sense? Are we all on the same page? Yes or no? We get it? Okay. So let's go back here. So this represents flowing through our emotions. This represents not flowing through our emotions. Now let's see how it looks in this analogy of water. This attachment right here, if I have it fully colored in, what did the water do? Did you let it flow? Did you accept it, let it run its course, let it happen? To give up trying to control it? Yes. When I let go of this, let's say, boom, ow, I finally cut the wanting and attachment, and we're in water, what's it going to do? Sink to the bottom. Is it going to stay there? Yes. It sure will. Now let's take an attachment, okay, and we're not letting the emotion pass through us. So let's say you had a really, really big game, and you played like crap, and you're dwelling on it. It's been 2 weeks, and you're still thinking about that game and how you could have played better, okay, and you feel this emotion of anger and sadness and being upset, grumpy mood, right? You're denying the emotion. You're trying to let go of it. You're telling yourself, forget it, forget about it. I'm not going to think about it. Every time it pops up, you avoid it. You don't think about it. That's an example of you trying to let go of an emotion that hasn't been fully flowed. What's going to happen? It's going to sink? Has it flowed? Is there still air in this bubble? What's it going to do? So think about it, boys. If I push a beach ball farther and farther down in water, what happens? Does it erupt? The farther it goes down, the bigger it erupts, right? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. So this is what happens when we try to avoid or forget emotions that we don't want. Eventually, they do what? Do they erupt? Right? So write this down. Suppression erupts. Right? So when I'm pushing the beach ball down, I'm suppressing it, correct? Like I'm suppressing an emotion. Have we heard that before? You haven't? That's okay. So pressing downward you can think of, right? I'm pressing it down, I'm avoiding it, right? Do we get that? Pressing down, okay?
So you want the flow to like stay down and not pop back up. That's what you're saying.
You want to flow through the emotions, yes. And also write this phrase down. Resistance persists. Resistance persists. What does resistance persist mean? If you keep resisting it or suppressing it, what is it going to keep doing? Is it going to keep popping back up?
No. Yes.
Persistence, right? It's going to keep coming back at you. Does that make sense? So is it always going to keep becoming a problem? Because did you ever handle it the right way? No. Does that make sense, boys? Yeah. So we have to learn how to say yes to the emotions. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Do we get the kind of analogy? Does the drawing and stuff help understand it? Mm-hmm. Do we get it? Essentially, are there bad emotions? There aren't bad emotions. Should you say no to what you are feeling? No. Say yes. Say, it's trying to show me something. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm not going to suppress it. And I'm not going to resist it. I'm going to let it do its thing. Because then when you let go of something that you let run its course, it'll never, ever come back. It could come back in a different situation, but that exact experience from that exact form of what caused it won't be a problem anymore. Does that make sense? Now, boys, like I said, is it about becoming non-emotional? No. It's learning how to fully experience what? Write that down. So it's not about being non-emotional. It's about fully experiencing the motion you have now.
It's about what?
Fully experiencing the emotion you have now. Does that make sense? You got that, Prashant, or you need help? You got it? Okay. Everybody gets that? So while these, is it about being okay when you feel your emotions too? Is it reminding yourself, like, I'm going to be okay? Because our emotions always changing. Yes. So in reality, are we this line, boys? Or are we the background behind the lines? Right? So are you, when I say you, the present version of you, right? When you're experiencing something, are you the emotion you're experiencing, or are you behind the emotion? Right? So another good analogy could be the sky, right? The sky holds the clouds, correct? Are the clouds the sky? No. When we're emotional, do most people tie in the clouds and the sky together? Yes. Okay. So this, boys, is called fusion. We learned it in another class. What's fusion mean?
When two things combine.
When two things combine, right? So if I break this down into a 3D model, boys, okay? Let's say if this is 3D, boys, is the cloud in the circle?
No.
Yes, I'm popping it out to make it look 3D. Does that make sense? Or no? Okay. This, if I create separation from the sky and the cloud, am I fused with the cloud if I've created separation? No, I'm not fused with it. But let's say we scoot this in now. Now the cloud and sky are one, which is what most people experience. Are they fused together?
Yes.
Can you see the cloud clearly if you are combined with the sky and the cloud? No. Does that make sense? So we have to learn how to fall behind our emotional experience so we can see it. Does that make sense? Can be confusing. It's okay if you're confused. So if we're the sky, we want to be behind the clouds to see it clearly and to not try and change it, but let it happen. Does that make sense? When we're fused, they're connected. We can't see what's going on. Make sense? When we're mindless, we're what? When we're mindful, are the cloud and sky one? No. When we're mindless, are they one?
Yes.
Does that make sense? Do we get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Really good job, boys. So we understand what it means to flow with an emotion. Yes? Okay. So talk amongst your groups right now. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bathroom quick. You have 1 minute. Talk amongst you boys. What does it mean to flow with an emotion, and why is it important? Go. Start talking. All right, let's hear it. What do you got?
I don't understand that example.
So when Cooper eats his goldfish, he's happy, and that's okay. And then when he doesn't have his goldfish, he's mad, and that's okay. Like he has to keep those emotions in mind.
That's pretty good, actually.
Makes sense now.
Yeah, right? You're not denying the emotion, okay? That's good, right? You're not trying to avoid it at all costs. That's a good example. Essentially, there's no bad emotions, okay? In that instance, if we're getting mad about a goldfish, is it pointing to something about our mind and our psychology? Yes.
We're eating too much food.
It's possible. Well, yeah, are you relying too much on goldfish maybe? Is that what it's showing?
Yeah.
Do you get how it's pointing to something? It's pointing for you to learn something.
It's like pretty much like I'm happy when I have pickles, but I'm sad when I don't have pickles. That's okay, but I gotta
That
figure out
means
why
you're
I'm
like,
sad when I don't have pickles.
Yes, exactly, right? And can it be a problem if we're getting a lot of happiness from a food?
yeah.
Probably, right? Do we want to get happiness from maybe other things that matter a little bit more to us in life?
You can have like you can be like happy for like other stuff, but like food is like bad. To be happy without it.
It's not bad. We just have to be smart about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're relying too much, if you want, right? If we're wanting, is that creating less freedom for us? Yes. Does that make sense?
You can want basketball, like that's a good thing to want, or something like that.
To be better, yes. Does that make sense? Is it going to be different for everyone? It's in line with your values. If eating food, really good food, is a huge value for you in life, then no one can sit here and tell you to be different. Does that make sense? But it's about understanding the experience you are experiencing. That's the biggest piece. Because then do you have choice over it? Right? So if you're flowing with the emotion, you have some choice in how you respond to it and what you learn from it. But if I'm resisting or not denying what I'm experiencing, will you learn anything? No, because you can't see what's going on clearly. Does that make sense? Yes?
So you don't want to you want to be able to see your emotion, but you don't want to be your emotion.
That's pretty good. That's perfect. Let's write that down, actually. We want to see the emotion without being the emotion. Because when we're being the emotion, are we fused with it? Yes. Good job, Cam.
You want to see the emotion, not be the emotion.
Yes. Because if you are the emotion, do you have a lot of control in the situation? No. Right? You're going to give in to every little thing the emotion sees. Really good job, boys.
I can't believe that I figured that out.
You guys are smart. You're smart. Okay, now we're going to draw a graph, boys. Okay? This bottom line represents time. Okay, here's the present. Here's the future. Here's the past. This upper vertical line represents what most people think of as good emotions and what most people think of as bad emotions. But again, am I telling you to look at it that way? No. Okay. Do we all have this graph drawn?
Does that say present time? I can't really read that.
So time is under. You're good. This is present, buddy. Past, future. Time just is saying that the whole line is time. Does that make sense? This, good, bad. In quotes. Because do I want you to label them like that?
No.
No.
Every emotion is.
Every emotion belongs, correct? Yes. Okay. Now, boys, we're going to talk about how our mood distorts our perception. Okay? So, I want someone to give me an example of a really, really happy memory in the past.
We went to the fair
You went to the fair?
like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So, when you experienced that, that was a really high emotional, quote unquote, good emotion, correct? Yes?
When I went to the Minnesota State Fair and my cousin was on a roller coaster and I was having fun and he was screaming.
Okay, that's good. So let's say, boys, this circle represents our emotion right now in this present state. Okay? So for right now, what does it mean for something to be polar opposites? Like if happy's a polar opposite, what's the other end of the spectrum? Sad. Okay? So I'm actually going to change this, boys. I want to change this to happy and sad, just for this example. But if emotions are polar, meaning they have opposites, could you use different emotions on this graph for the example?
Yes.
Yes. Does that make sense? So we have a really, really happy memory of the fair. When you experienced it, it was super happy. Correct? Let's say Coop's been in a really, really sad mood lately, and he feels like that right now. When he recalls that exact same memory, when you objectively experienced it, was really happy, right? When you recall the same memory, you're going to perceive it as worse than it actually was. Emotions distort perception, right? So when you start to think about all the things in the past, when you're in a sad mood, boys, do you start to see everything from a sad mood lens?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. If we start to think about things in the future when we're in that sad mood, is everything going to look worse than it normally would?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this goes back to Cam's statement. We want to see the emotion, not be the emotion, right? Because if we are the emotion, boys, everything that we think about or perceive is either going to be better or worse than it actually is.
Worse.
Well, it could be both. What if you're in a really happy mood and you think about a sad event? Will it be better than it actually was? Yes or no? If you're in a happy mood and you think about an objectively sad event, meaning when you experienced it, it was very sad,
Well, it would be more happy, kind of.
it would be slightly better than it actually was. Does that make sense? Is this dangerous?
No, yes.
Very dangerous. Because are you seeing clearly in this state, ever?
No.
You're never seeing clearly, right? Is that our goal, to see clearly? Yes. Does that make sense? So either way, if you have a good mood or bad mood, we still have to be careful because you're not seeing things clearly. It's like when someone gets a big head, right? They start to get a little bit of an ego because they're really, really good at something. Say someone's really good at basketball and they think they're amazing, okay? Is that going to stunt their growth? Because they think their skills are better than they actually are. Does that make sense? So are we getting how emotion distorts perception? Right? So write this down. Emotions makes things look better or worse than they actually are. Emotions make things look better or worse than they actually are. And I said this is dangerous. Why?
It's dangerous because
Because you're changing. Good.
Are you seeing clearly?
No.
No.
Yeah, and you're changing memories, so probably next time you see it's going to be the same.
And not just memories. When you imagine something, is that also not going to look right? Or even present, like right now in this class, if I'm in a sad mood, am I going to see it as worse than it is? Yes. So do we have to be careful about how we see things? Yes. Does that make sense? Are we all on the same page? Do we get this, how emotion distorts perception? Okay.
So if you're really happy, you see things that might have been mad or sad as happy. But if we're mad, then we're going to see things as mad.
Correct. And you boys get done at what time?
All of it.
Shoot. Crap, I got 4 minutes. Okay. Ah, dang it, I'm not going to get to a lot of things I want to get to.
you can go over.
Can I go really fast?
Sure.
Okay, first let's get to projection, okay? So when I see something, boys, so when I say I have this first circle always represents what? What is? When I'm emotional, is that like putting sunglasses on the moment? What's happening? Yes. Yep. So when I perceive something like a memory or an event, this right here is the act of me perceiving what is going on, correct? This is called projection, boys. And there's a law in human nature. When we feel something, what do we want the person next to us to feel?
Good.
The same exact way? So if we're not in a good mood, most of the time, do we want to try and tear people down with us? Or will our actions be like that? Yeah. They will, right? Yeah. When we feel good, what do we want to do?
We want other people to feel good.
We always want people to match how we feel, okay? That's the act of projection, right? So if I'm in an angry mood, right, am I going to see everything that makes me more mad? Yes. Am I projecting onto it?
Kind of like feels better. You will want people to be like bad too because it will make you feel better.
Correct. Does that make sense, boys? So when you're perceiving it as better or worse, that's the act of projection, okay? Do we want to try and project anything onto anything? No, because if you're projecting anything at all on anything, are you seeing clearly?
No.
If there's any projection at all, you're not seeing clearly. Write that down. If there is any projection at all, you are not seeing clearly. Does that make sense, boys? Okay. So essentially, have you boys watched The Matrix before?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this a great analogy for The Matrix? If everyone's always projecting, boys, are we living in a dream world? We are, right? If everyone's projecting their emotional state onto other people, what they see, their memories, their imagination, right? Are they living in what's real? No, they see it through a lens that is not fully real. I'm not saying the people objectively, their physical manner in front of them aren't real. They are. But how they perceive them as good or bad or angry, sad people, right? A lot of those are projections.
It's objective, subjective.
Right? So when we're projecting, are we in a subjective state or an objective state?
We're in a
Objective.
Subjective. Subjective is the ego's lens, right? Objective is without the ego's lens. Do we remember that?
You want to have ego for other people, kind of? You want to care about other people?
Yes, right? But listen to this, boys. If we're always striving for success in the dream world, is anything getting done?
No.
No, right? This is why it's the biggest hack to growth, boys, is when you focus on what's real and what's true, what you know to be true in this moment, you're going to advance so much faster than other people because everyone else is stuck in their imaginations and strivings in their own projected world of what's going on. So they're just going round and round this loop that's not getting them anywhere because it's never what's actually true or real. Isn't that crazy? So if you want to grow really, really fast, a lot faster than other people, you start catching those projections and you start focusing on what is actually true. Do you remember all that from our previous class? Are we starting to see how everything's starting to tie together?
Yeah.
Yeah? Isn't that crazy? The Matrix can be a good analogy for how we perceive things. Does that make sense? Okay. What were we going to say, buddy?
So like when we're trying to have our emotions, like when we're just letting our emotions come through us, it's kind of like Neo in the Matrix, just like dodging the bullet, or not?
That's a great example, right? So say I'm Neo in the Matrix and I dodge a bullet because I can see clearly the cause of something happening. Can I stop the bullet from causing me suffering?
Yeah.
Yes. Isn't that cool? It's a great analogy for it. Is it mind-blowing?
Yeah. I've seen that movie like
It's next time, watch it again and watch it from the lens of analogies with the mind. Because it's literally written with analogies of the mind in mind.
Are all movies written like that? With the analogy in the mind?
Kind of. Maybe
Not necessarily a metaphor for it. Okay? Can you give me 1 second, Brielle? You're in the next class, right? Okay. Could you wait outside? We're almost done. All right, lie. Brielle. We got to go, guys. Sorry. There's one. That's good. You did go 2 for 2. Listen, how many minutes are we at? You girls can come in.
12.
You all can come in.
We did 11 last time.
So you're at 12? Listen, we're doing now just sitting again for a long period of time. So 12 minutes. In and out. Do we got it? Yes? Okay, good work. Good work. Nux, good job.
Yeah, I don't need
Thanks.
I don't need
Good job.
I've seen